If Fireworks were to remain as a graphics editor which could only produce HTML-based web pages, I'd say its future would be pretty limited. CSS is all the rage, and there are a lot of good reasons for this. Separating content from presentation, easier to maintain web pages, global control over a site's look and feel from a single document are some of the most common reasons for turning to CSS-based web page layouts. And this shift hasn't been lost on Adobe or the Fireworks development team either. New to CS4 is an export option called CSS and Images. Let's have a look at this feature and the thought process behind it. Now, when you're working with slices inside of Fireworks, you can have one of two main graphic slices. You can have foreground slices, as we see here, or you can have background slices. Okay, and the big difference between the two of them is foreground slices are going to be inline, they're going to be part of the document flow, and they'll require alternate text and so on. Generally, unless an image is necessary for comprehension of the web page, background slices are recommended. Now, as another little added bonus, background slices or background images don't require alternate text either. So only keep the images that are really important to the page comprehension as foreground images, and anything that's more decorative should be set up as a background image. Now, on export, Fireworks will try to place text in logical div containers, so you don't have to slice it up. In fact, the only reason to slice text at all is if you have a stylized font or something going on that you want to maintain in the web page layout. That way, regardless of whether the user has the font or not, it's going to still show up exactly the way they expect. Granted, it'll be a graphic, but it'll still show up the way you had designed it. Let's take a look over here at our File menu, go to Export, and the choice we want, it's already set here at the moment, but you'll find it inside the Export options. CSS and Images is the one we want to work with. And before we go ahead and save anything, let's go to our Options button here and see what we've got to work with. The General tab is really the only place we need to look at here because we're not dealing with tables at all with this design. It's all CSS. So a couple things that you might want to do. Write CSS to an external file. We have the option to either embed the CSS into the web page itself or write it out as an external document. And if you're planning to use this design and the CSS for multiple pages, then it's probably a good idea to write it out as an external file. You've also got the option to drop in a background image that already exists within your folders, and you can choose whether you want that to repeat or not as well just by clicking on the drop-down menu here. And lastly, down at the bottom, are options for page alignment. We can align the page to the left, the center, or the right. And this is a fixed width design, so I'm going to stick with center alignment. Click OK. And make sure that I browse to a folder that's suitable. In this case, I've got the folder I want here, CSS_export. I've even got a images subfolder set up. And just sort of following down the bottom of our export dialog box, I've got the Put Images in Subfolder checkbox selected. And we'll just click Save. Now let's have a look at this inside of Firefox. You'll see when we go to the window itself, there's the surfer.html file, and there's also our CSS file with the same name. And if I just double click inside my images folder, there's all the images that make up the entire design. So I'll just open up my surfer page. And you can see we get essentially an exact replica of our Fireworks design. And in fact, if you tried exporting HTML and images in other exercises, you may think, well, there's not much difference here. Well, there's a couple little things, and they're really important ones, actually. The main one being the fact that I can go into this document and I can select my text. This is all selectable text. It's all HTML text now. This is not possible with the HTML and images export. So we've got a page here that is actually a functional page. Works the way we would expect it or want it to work. All the text along here, unless it was sliced up, is all going to be selectable. And even down at the bottom, mouse over the Sign Up Today link, and you'll see that it actually behaves like a hyperlink. And in fact, if you look down at the bottom of the browser window, you'll see that it's actually got a null link attached to it. So it's actually going to behave as a proper hyperlink. So that's not bad for an export right out of Fireworks. But let's take this a bit further. Let's have a look at it inside of Dreamweaver. There's the page inside of Dreamweaver. You can see it right here. We've got our selectable text. We've got our images and so on. They're all in place, and we can even make changes to the design as we want because we can work with the CSS style sheet to make alterations, or we can copy and paste new text in. It's really up to us. We can even replace images as desired. Now, one thing I just want to point out down here at the bottom, you'll see my little Sign Up Today link again. If I click on that, you look in the Properties Inspector, you'll see there's the null link. But it's running over 2 lines, and it doesn't seem like it should because it's actually got a lot of space. Well, you know, this is just Fireworks trying to control everything as much as possible on the export. So what's happened here, if I go into my style sheet inside of Fireworks and just scroll down a little bit here. Okay, maybe more than a little bit, but anyway, here we are. down around line 239, there's our sign up link, and you'll see in here on line 242 there's a width been specified. Well, if I delete that from my CSS and I save my CSS page and I hop back over to Dreamweaver, you notice there we go. It's been brought back up into one line. We didn't really need a width applied to that text. It's just one of the things that Fireworks is doing to try and keep things as controlled as possible when the file is being exported out. So you can see we now have an editable and significantly more accessible web page. Additional tweaking can be done with Dreamweaver or the HTML editor of your choice. This option definitely keeps Fireworks in the running as my preferred web graphics editor. And while the resulting HTML tends to suffer a little bit from class-itis, keep in mind that this is the first time this feature has been available natively within Fireworks. And I would not be surprised to see further updates to the CSS and images export as the application evolves.